Hello everyone, welcome to another Java Made Simple tutorial video. Before we start, I would like to mention that if you're not subscribed and you like these videos, please do subscribe and leave a comment if you do not like it or a dislike, something that would point me to basically a way to improve. And so just give me some feedback on what I'm doing wrong and I will try to improve this. I'm doing this so that you guys can get to know Java a bit better, so to help you out. Okay, so let's get started with this video. In this one, we're going to be talking about arrays. Maybe you remember in one of the previous videos where we looked at variables, we said that the variable is something like a container. So let's get back a bit to that. So think of this container. Let's say that we want to store something in it. That something may be, I don't know, let's just say juice, beer, doesn't matter. We want to store it in the container. That container would be a can, for example. So we have something that we want to store, which is some juice or whatever, and we are storing it in a can. Can is our type, and that's our container. Okay, now you go to a shop and you say, yeah, I want to buy 6 of these. You can, of course, buy them individually and take them in your hand and just go. I mean, you would look like an idiot because you're carrying it, for example, without a bag, and probably a couple of them will just roll down the streets, and yeah, you would be in a huge mess. Or you can be a smart person and say, yeah, I would buy a pack of these. You know, for example, when you're buying beer, you get this 6-pack. So it's already all of those containers packed together. So they're like in a bigger container. So that's what an array is. Array is a possibility that you store different variables in another container, so pack them together. One thing that's important is that those variables must be of same type, so you can't mix types inside of an array. So let's take a look at how we can declare such an array. For example, we want an array of integers, so just of numbers. We do it like this. First, we say of which type this array is. Int, so that's an int. Then we do these brackets. So these brackets represent an array. So we are saying this is a one-dimensional array of type integer. Then we give it a name. We can name it like whatever we want. So like, for example, name it I don't know, 6-pack. And then we say these curly brackets indicate that we can fill out this array. So we can give some values inside. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we here have an array with 6 elements. Okay, looks nice. So this is how we declare an array. We give it a type. We put these brackets here, which indicate that this is an array. And we give it some name, like always. And we say it equals to this value. So this is our array. So it's really simple. If we want to do it with strings, we would do it something like that. String, again, brackets, some name, and then these curly brackets, and yeah, our string values, whatever you want. So yeah, as long as they are strings. If you would put something else, for example, like if you're putting a number here, IntelliJ is complaining immediately about it because we are requiring a string, but we provide an integer. And of course, every type that you know of, you can make an array of it. Okay, nice. So let's see what would happen if we want to print out these numbers. For example, in the previous video, we talked about for loop. So let's do something like that. We can say for int I equals 0. I is less than 6 because we have 6 elements, and I plus plus. So we explained what this means in the previous video. And then we want to say system.out.println. So we want to print elements from this array. We can do that by saying 6-pack, so the name of our array, then these brackets, and then inside we have to provide an index. Which position do we want to print? One important thing to remember is that when you're talking about indexes or positions inside of array, the first position always is 0. So that's a 0 index. So the positions here would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 6 positions, but starting from 0. So if you say here just 0 and you would loop through this 6 times, you would always print whatever is here. So for example, let's just see that. So this should print number 1 6 times. If I put something here like, I don't know, whatever, and print it out, you should see that number 6 times because we are giving it position 0. If we would say position 5, then it would print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it should print 6. Yeah, so that's nice, but it doesn't really help us to print all of the numbers from our array. We can do that by saying here I. So I is I don't know, shortened for index, and you can see that it starts at 0 and ends at 5. So it's 5 is less than 6, so that's the last one that it will hit. And since I is of type integer, we can pass it in here. So if we run our program again, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So all of the numbers are printed. But you're thinking to yourself, maybe what if I give some index that doesn't exist? Like for example, I give index of 500. I want to print 500 position of this array. We run our program and we get something called an exception. Exception is an error that happens in your program and it gets printed out, and usually they have, so exceptions have different types, and this one is array index out of bounds exception. Basically telling you that index 500 is out of bounds for length 6. So length 6 means that there are 6 elements and the last position is 6 minus 1, so 5, because we are starting with 0. So if I would say 6 here, I would get the same error again because 6 still doesn't exist in this array. We only go up to 5 positions. So of the index 5, sorry. So there are 6 positions. Okay. And with I, we can print all of them. Perfect. So we saw that how that works. It's really nice. It's really simple how to print all of the elements from the array and how to create them. But let's say that for some reason you do not know how many elements you know how many elements you're going to have, but you do not know elements immediately. You can also declare an empty array like this. So we can say int, again array, again give it some name, whatever. And we can say that this is now a new int, and we have to say what's the how many elements it's going to have. Let's say it will have 3 elements. So we created an empty array with the name x epsilon whatever of type integer. So it takes in integers inside, and it's going to have a length of 3. Which means it will have so indexes 0, 1, and 2. And here you can see this keyword that we're using. It's called new. It's used to create a new instance of this array. So if you use new something, it's going to create new instance of this. For example, you can also do new string. So that would be one thing that how you can use it. But for now, just keep it simple. So we just say that here is how we declare an empty array of some length. If you would say 500 here, so that means that the last index that you would have would be 499. So keep that in mind. So index and length are not the same. So the length is always, the index is always length minus 1. Okay, so let's add some elements to this array. How do we do that? We can say x epsilon 0, so index 0 equals 5, and x epsilon index 2 equals, I don't know, 67, whatever. Then let's print out this array. For example, in IntelliJ, you can create this iteration loop. If you write for I and then just hit enter, it would create it immediately for you. And here you just have to give some length. And instead of manually typing length 3, we can say something like x epsilon dot length. So this is getting the property length of this array, which is 3. So I is less than 3. So it would go up to index 2. And let's print them out and say again x epsilon I. can you see what we are doing now here? We have set an array, so we created an array with 3 positions. So we have 0, 1, and 2, and we have set some value at 0 and 2. Can you guess what would happen in the position 1? So on the index 1, what's the value? Maybe you remember in one of the previous tutorials when we talked about numbers that the int is a primitive integer, which means that it always has a value, and since we didn't set any to it, the default value is 0. And of course we can set it, and we can say 1 equals, I don't know, minus 621. And if we print that again, so if we run our program again, you can see that the values are printed. Okay, let's see what would happen if we overwrite it now. If I say again here, 0 equals, I don't know, whatever, and run our program again. Well, obviously we assigned a value 5 here, and then did something on different indexes, and then again on the index that we already have assigned a value, we assigned a new value. So it's just overwritten. That's how it works. Of course, you can also do some fancy stuff, like you can add 10 plus 1 here, for example, and then run your program again. You would get 11 here. So it's really the types, since the type is integer, you can do everything that we talked about, what you can do with integers. And if it would be, I don't know, type Boolean, you can do whatever you want with type Boolean and stuff like that. So it's really nice. Let's see one more thing. For example, how would you say from this array here that we have, let's make it a bit bigger. So let's add 2 more positions. So we can just copy this, and we can say here 3, and we can say here 4, and we can give values blah 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 and print them out. So we have 5 minus 6 blah blah. How we can say here, print all of the numbers from this array that are positive. This you should already know. We talked about if conditions and how we can do that. So let's take a look. It should be really simple. We can say if, so x epsilon I, so this would get a value of a certain index, is less than 0, meaning it's negative, I want to continue. We talked about continue keyword, which means, yeah, just skip this iteration of this loop. So let's run our program again. And you can see that it prints all of the numbers that are positive. And if you want only negative numbers, for example, you can just invert this, and then it should just print this one. So basically you can now combine the knowledge that we have with for loops, with how to declare variables of different types, and then if conditions and all of the keywords that we talked about. So you can combine all of that and really play out with arrays. So that would be everything for this video. Hopefully it was clear enough. Arrays are really nice things to know about, and definitely you're going to be using them basically the entire time. I know that I'm mentioning this every time we introduce something new, that you will always be using it, but since these are the basics of Java, you will definitely be using this. But don't worry, we are going to do many fancy stuff with arrays later on. I just want to show you the basics, how you can declare them, and what you can exactly do with them. Okay, so that would be everything. If you have any questions for me, or if something is unclear, please do write me, and I will try to clear it up for you. So see you in the next video.